Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again. This morning, I want to explore the subject, as I said, of mindful self-compassion. Mindful self-compassion. And compassion is so essential in our lives. You know, it's compassion and loving kindness that makes this world beautiful and also bearable when we're going through a difficult experience. You know, and in a perfect world, we would always have a dear friend nearby. We'd always have a dear friend nearby to comfort us when we're needing support. And some of us have dogs. They do a pretty good job at that. But it's important that we know how to take good care of ourselves. So we can think of self-compassion as giving ourselves the kindness and the care that we would give to a good friend, to a really dear friend. When we take care of ourselves, when we are soothed and when we are supported, we're much more able to function and function well and support others. So the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron, she's a wonderful teacher on compassion, and she says that without loving kindness for ourselves, it is difficult, if not impossible, to genuinely feel it for others. You know, think about it. When Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, if you're not loving yourself, well, your neighbor is kind of out of luck, right? Love your neighbor as yourself means that we have to love ourselves. We have to love ourselves well so that we can love our neighbor and we have that store of love in our hearts. Pema goes on to say that in cultivating loving kindness, we learn first to be honest, loving, and compassionate towards ourselves. And rather than nurturing self-denigration, we begin to cultivate a clear-seeing kindness. I love that phrase, a clear-seeing kindness. You know, sometimes we feel good, we feel strong, and sometimes we feel inadequate, we feel weak, you know, but like mother love, like the unconditional Maitri, no matter how we feel, we can always aspire that we be happy, and that we not suffer. That word Maitri is a Sanskrit word for unconditional friendship with oneself. It's an unconditional acceptance that we give ourselves. You know, I recently saw a cartoon of a man kneeling by his bed and his hands are in prayer and he's saying, I asked you as nice as I could to make me a better person, but apparently you couldn't be bothered. So this unconditional friendship towards ourselves, this Maitri, it begins with the realization that we're not going to find it outside of ourselves, that it really needs to come from within. And yet, you know, all too often what comes from within us is a critical voice versus a compassionate voice. And so it is our mindfulness. It is mindfulness, which means being aware of what's happening now, mindfulness. It helps us pay attention to how we are either soothing ourselves with self-kindness or criticizing ourselves with self-judgment, and really explore what that balance looks like. Michael Singer, my first spiritual teacher, I've talked about him before, he wrote The Untethered Soul. He talks about how we have an inner roommate. We have this inner roommate, this voice in our head that has an opinion about everything. And often it's not a nice opinion, right? Have you noticed this inner roommate? You know, once we practice mindfulness, we practice mindfulness more, we become very aware of this inner roommate. I notice my inner roommate, and, you know, she can sometimes be pretty critical, you know, especially when I do something that I judge as imperfect, as not good enough, right? And it happened recently, right after a meeting I was in. You know, something happened in the meeting and I said something less than eloquently. And, you know, it was a small thing in the scheme of things, but it bothered me that I didn't speak, you know, perfectly. And I even woke up in the middle of the night, later that night, and I started thinking about it. You know, my mind just started going, my inner roommate started going, and I was having these thoughts. Oh, I wish I didn't say that the way I did. I messed up. I should have been more skillful. My inner roommate just really got going. And then, after reflecting on that, I finally brought in the mindfulness, even kind of half asleep in the middle of the night. And I realized, I need to bring in the inner compassionate voice that says, you just need to forgive yourself for being imperfect. It's okay. And so, that phrase, the clear-seeing kindness, the clear-seeing part is the part that considers, okay, it's good to be discerning, and I can grow in my skillfulness. So that's the clear-seeing part and the honesty with myself. But the kindness part says, you're human, and we're all a work in progress, and we're not going to do things perfectly as much as we'd like. So the compassionate, voice says, I don't have to hold myself to impossible standards. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. A lot of what I'm sharing today is based on a really wonderful book by Dr. Kristen Neff. She's a psychologist, and she wrote this wonderful little workbook, actually. It's called Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook. And in it, she describes 3 main components of self-compassion, and they are self-kindness, a sense of common humanity, and mindfulness. Self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. And in the story that I just gave you, the self-kindness I was able to bring in by realizing that, okay, I messed up, but I had good intentions, and I was doing my best, and I fumbled some words. And the common humanity piece is realizing we all fumble words sometimes, and that's okay. And then the mindfulness was seeing, oh, okay, so I can listen to my inner critic for a little bit, and I can take those opinions to heart, and vow to be more skillful in the future. But then also bring in my self-compassion roommate, my self-compassion voice that says, you're human and you're allowed to make mistakes. You can forgive yourself. You can, let go of self-judgment, right? So self-compassion means we treat ourselves, in the way we would treat a good friend. And I invite you to consider, do you treat yourself in the way you treat a good friend? I think, Michael, you wrote something on Facebook. Well, do you treat yourself as well as you treat your pet? And that's a good reflection. I wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night and call up my friend to tell them, how they messed up, and go on and on with criticisms. I would never do that, right? So mindfulness is noticing when the inner critical roommate is making us feel discouraged, and learning to give the compassionate voice her say or his say. And it's a practice of putting a supporting arm around our own shoulder and being a good friend to ourselves. I was thinking this week, sometimes we face really difficult situations, where there isn't really an answer and there isn't really a good solution. It might be that we have 2 choices and neither one of them are great, that whether we choose this or whether we choose that, there's suffering in both choices. And, that's where the teaching from the Buddha that life has suffering and, make peace with that comes in. It's interesting, part of compassion is being with suffering. In fact, the word compassion means to suffer with. And part of growing in our skill is recognizing when we're fighting with what life is bringing. And when we do that, when we're resisting what life is bringing, instead of allowing it and accepting it is what it is, when we're fighting it, we're pushing it away or we're trying to deny it, that adds a lot more suffering onto just the initial suffering. So, instead we can make peace with the moment, and let go of the struggle against, what sometimes feels painful in life. the common humanity piece is really important, and Dr. Neff talks about that. And that piece is realizing we're not alone in the suffering we go through. And that's why we often, we do want to talk to a good friend. That's another piece of self-compassion, is calling a good friend, because they are the ones that often remind us of common humanity and say, oh gosh, what you're going through, I went through that, and here's what I experienced, and here's how I found my way through. And then we hear we're not alone. We're not alone. That's what we need to know. All of humanity, we are all going through such similar things. And I think when we don't talk to each other, when we're not sitting in circle often, like, we've been more isolated in the last 2 years, we don't realize that other people are going through such similar things as we are. Here's an example. One of my friends, I'll call her Lily, recently came down with a really difficult and painful nerve condition. And that makes it impossible for her to fly. She can't travel by plane. And because flying, it just exacerbates her condition, and it causes this extreme pain. But the challenge is that Lily is really close to her mom, and her mom lives on the other side of the country, way over there on the East Coast. And because of the pain she's gone through the last couple times she's flown, it just brings on this condition terribly. So she feels she can't make the trip. And, her eyesight is such she can't drive that long of a distance. And so this dilemma is causing her just a tremendous amount of heartache, because she knows her mom is aging and she wants to have every last minute with her. And so she's really torn between seeing her mom and also keeping herself from physical suffering. So I encouraged her to bring in self-compassion and to just fully allow all her feelings, to name them, to get in touch with everything she's feeling, and to hold those feelings of helplessness and anxiety and sadness and struggle, to just hold that with so much compassion. And to hold the fact that there really is no easy fix, to hold that with compassion. And to allow that there is suffering either way, with this tough choice of what to do. So self-compassion is just holding it all in a gentle, spacious way. And also just holding that we don't have an answer right now, self-compassion says, well, this isn't easy to meet. This is really hard to meet, but I can meet it. And we can, allow the feelings without pushing them away and without fighting what is here, And remember that so many others face a very similar challenge, that we're not alone in this experience we're having. And then we can take a walk and listen to our inner compassionate voice and be a good friend to ourselves. Maybe take a bath, get a good night's sleep, and just surrender the need to do any more, There's a really great teaching from another wonderful Buddhist teacher, Tara Brach, based on the acronym RAIN, R-A-I-N. And R-A-I-N stands for 4 steps that are so helpful in bringing mindfulness and compassion to when we're having emotional difficulty. And so the letters of RAIN stand for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. Recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. And so we start with recognizing, which means we consciously acknowledge in any given moment all the thoughts and all the feelings and all the behaviors that are affecting us. And it can just be a simple whisper, that we know what we're most aware of. We just become aware of all that we're feeling. And like in the case of my friend Lily, she recognized that she felt sad and she felt helpless because she had these 2 choices and they both created suffering. So the next letter in RAIN is A for allow. So once Lily recognized what she was feeling, then she allowed all those feelings. She allowed all the thoughts. She allowed the emotions, the feelings, the sensation in her body, the feeling of heartache. She just let it be. She let it be. She just simply allowed it to be there without trying to push it away, without trying to avoid it and without trying to fix it. Just let it be. And, she recognized she was afraid of missing, her mom's, maybe last, months or years on earth. And she allowed that fear by saying to herself, it's okay. It's okay. We can allow this fear to be here. We can let it be here. We can hold it. Just let it be here. Allowing our feelings is the opposite of resisting them. When we resist them, we add suffering. And resistance comes in many forms. It's fighting with what is, wanting to push it away, being in denial, wanting to deny it or avoid it at all costs. We have a lot of ways we avoid and deny that are not healthy. And that's why we want to become more mindful and meet our suffering with more skillfulness. So when we allow it, when we accept it, there's a peace that comes in that. There's a sense of surrendering and giving it over to the divine and realizing we can't control everything. We just can't. And when we accept that, there's peace. There's a lot more peace that comes. The next step in RAIN is the I, which means investigate. And so the investigation that's bringing in mindfulness, and that's asking a few questions like, what am I experiencing right now? What am I experiencing right now? How am I feeling in my body? And what am I believing? What story am I telling myself? What am I believing about the situation? All those questions are great for investigation. I also call investigation self-reflection. So in Lily's case, she found that she was believing that she was being selfish. She was believing that she was a bad daughter, and then she was believing that considering her physical health as important as seeing her mom was there was something wrong with that, something wrong with that. And so with this investigation, she saw that she was being unfair to herself. And the inner critic, that was saying that she was being selfish, she realized she needed to bring in the inner compassionate voice that said, your health and your well-being matter. They matter as much as anything else and anyone else. So the last step in RAIN is N for nurture. And nurturing is bringing in self-compassion. And there's a lot of ways to nurture. But one of the great ways to realize how to nurture ourselves is to ask the question, what do I need? What do I really need right now? What do I really need right now? And that is such a great question to offer ourselves when we're dealing with any kind of inner unrest, What do I need? What do I really need right now? And of course we have different needs at different times. It depends what we're going through. Sometimes what we need is comfort. We need comforting. I love our conversations after service, so I would love to hear from you. Actually, I'd really love to ask you and have you answer, how do you comfort yourself when you feel upset? That's a really great thing for us to share and circle. How do you comfort yourself when you're upset? Sometimes we need soothing, it's important to explore what makes us feel physically calmer. Gently caressing our heart can help, right? Even just holding ourselves, maybe rocking, it can help. Sometimes we need validating. Sometimes we just need an inner friend to say, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset, and it's okay to feel like you're an emotional mess. It's quite all right. Please do. Give yourself permission, It helps to label, like I said, the emotions that we're feeling. Sometimes we need sleep. Sometimes actually we need sleep most of all, because when we're not getting enough sleep, we're 10 times more emotionally raw. I certainly notice that in myself. When I'm exhausted, I am so much more emotionally raw. So in asking ourselves what we need, we are cultivating a caring and friendly attitude towards ourselves. And Dr. Neff suggests writing a writing practice with two parts. The first part is asking ourselves, what do I need now? And then writing. And the second question is asking ourselves, what do I need to hear? What do I need to hear? And that's a really beautiful reflection. So in Lily's case, once again, she might write, she needs to know it's okay to not be able to figure out the dilemma she's in, and that it's okay to care about her health and not want to suffer. And that doesn't mean she's selfish. And she needs soothing because her heart is hurting. So once we write and identify our need, then we can create affirmations and a prayer for ourselves, a tailor-made affirmation and prayer, which we can turn into a meditation. Our need might be kindness. It might be letting sadness go. It might be letting anxiety go. It might be forgiving ourselves. So our affirmation can be, may I be kind to myself. May these feelings of sadness be released. May I be at peace. May I rest in love. And then the second question in the writing practice is, what do I need to hear? And that really clarifies our need. Lily needed to hear it's okay if you don't fly to see your mom. You're still a loving daughter. She needed to hear you don't need to figure it out today. She needed to hear, love yourself. It's not selfish. You are a good person. So then we take this writing practice and we create this meditation with affirmations for ourselves. And we whisper these affirmations into our own ear, like our most loving, beloved grandmother might whisper in our ear, or our very dearest friend might whisper into our ear. So Lily's affirmation meditation might be, you can let go of the sadness. You can be at peace. It's okay to not have the answer right now. You are a good person. And so we turn this into a meditation. We can sit, we can lie down. We just take a few breaths and get in touch with our breathing. And then we let that loving inner voice, that dear friend that we are to ourselves, say, it's okay if you don't know the answer. You are loved. You are a good person. Your health and happiness matter. And we offer ourselves these phrases, and we repeat them, and we just surround ourselves with love and compassion. It's powerful to offer ourselves loving kindness every day. It's powerful to do a simple practice. It could just be 4 sentences. May I be happy. May I be at peace. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe and at ease. It's important and it's powerful. So the last thing I want to share, I actually shared it a little bit in our meditation, but it is a simple breathing exercise that's helpful when we are being present for someone else and holding a space of compassion for someone else, and they are sharing suffering. They're sharing, the challenges that they're going through. Because it isn't always easy to be there for others. Many of us are caregivers. So many of you are in a service role, and you are cultivating compassion, and people are drawn to that. And so there's a way that we can be with others without draining ourselves, without losing ourselves. And that is just this simple way of using our breath. And the way that we use our breath is we breathe in loving kindness for ourselves on the in-breath, and we breathe out loving kindness to the other person on the out-breath. I've been doing a lot of counseling lately. That's part of why I wrote this talk. It's Valentine's Day, and I was thinking, I could talk about love, but I think I really need to just talk about how do we love ourselves well. And so I love this simple practice. We breathe in the in-breath, breathing in loving kindness for ourselves. And we breathe the out-breath, breathing out loving kindness for the other. Whoever we're listening to, we're sending them loving kindness. And you can still listen really well while you're aware of your breath, and you just have a simple awareness that it's a loving kindness energy, right? You can still listen really well. In fact, the breath makes you fully present in your body. So Yeah, I hope that you might, employ this technique. It's something we can even offer when we see people suffering. Like, say you're at the grocery store, and the checkout person looks absolutely exhausted, and you can just start breathing in loving kindness for yourself, and breathing out loving kindness for them, and they'll feel the energy, and they'll see it in your eyes. So, in closing, I hope this talk supports you in growing in self-compassion. I think we can always increase our skill in self-kindness and care, and bring mindfulness to the inner roommate voice, right? And balance the self-critic with the compassionate inner self. And remember those two questions: what do I need now? And what do I need to hear? And offer that to ourselves and get in touch with what our need is and take good care of ourselves. Um, Take care of ourselves like we're taking care of the most precious child or our dearest friend. Because we are precious, precious beings. Every one of us is so worthy to feel love and to feel kindness. So, in closing, may you be at peace. May all beings be at peace. May you be happy. May all beings be happy. May we all be free of suffering and filled with loving kindness. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace, Peace, Peace. Thank you.